So, welcome everyone. This is Dr. Alana James, and today our conversation is about grant writing and fundraising. And I've put the two together because they are similar processes and they require a similar headspace from us as the authors of the proposals. So, however you think about it, this webinar is aimed at how do we take our skills as research designers, project managers, and academic writers and turn those towards talking to other people about why they should give us money. So I'm going to run through an agenda that is very process-oriented today. We're going to talk about what you have to think about in terms of your responsibility to this process, considering your reader, setting the standards, their standards, your standards, the actual leaving it, organizing it so you have time to edit and revise, and lots of resources. So we'll start with you. And the reason I say that is because asking for money is not a power place. It is puts us into psychologically, emotionally, puts us into the we're one down and we need something. The person with their hand out is the image. And whether or not we really have that in our mind, we need to think about the fact that that is not what this kind of fundraising is. This kind of fundraising is offering someone who has money, who has a job to do, who has a task to do it, offering our resources in order to help them get done what they need to get done. So it's a matter of our mission and their mission are in alignment, and we're showing them that our missions are in alignment and that we are knowledgeable and have the resources we need to get the job done so that they won't look bad by funding us. At the end of the day, the people who actually give the money are just someone else who has a different kind of job. And in their world, they take a hit if somebody that got funded blows up. It doesn't go well. It doesn't look good on their stats. It doesn't look good on their data. They want to fund people who make them shine. So this is a process about us moving ourselves to a place where we are in a position to make them shine. And therefore, the very first work we have to do is in our own heads. Okay? Welcome, by the way, from Dublin. I have some special links for Ireland today. Okay, so once we get our heads straight, then we have to consider their space. So who are these readers? And that depends upon the type of funding we are going for. So I'm going to go through each one, and then I have some links to consider as well. And I'm going to start with federal grants. For those of you in the U.S., the NSF is the biggest pot of money, probably. But there are many types of federal grants, and state grants. Your states might be interested in getting some things done. Anything that comes from a government grant, they're going to be read by committee. They are not going to be read by a single person. They're going to be read by several, at least. Oftentimes, 2 or 3 people read the grant, write it, judge it according to a rubric, and then they're put in order, and the top ones from all of these subcommittees come together, and then a bigger committee considers the number ones, maybe the number twos, until the money is given out. That's as often as not what goes on. So if I'm a reader, I'm given, first off, I'm a volunteer. Second off, I've been given by the people I am reading for pretty strict guidelines. They're telling me what they are looking for. They are giving me a rubric. I have to fill out that rubric so that I am making a case that some are better than others. So you have to write with that same thing in mind. You're writing to a person who is tired. You're writing in a way that makes it easy for them to skim through your work and see that you have ticked all the boxes that are required to be ticked. And then a lot depends on whether or not your work is interesting enough to catch their attention. One of the things that makes this process not completely fair, but you can't do anything about it, is the fact that you don't know how many they have to read and how great or not great the other grants were that they were reading. So if they have to read 3 grants and all of them are stunning, yours is up against heavy competition. If they have to read 3 grants and the other 2 are just not particularly good, then yours will shine and will be the number 1. So that's the reason they have the committee, the afterwards. You are convincing them that you are capable to do the work, that the work is interesting and meets their needs, and you write it in such a way that it's easy for them to scale on a rubric. So I've given you, I'm going to move over now to the screenshot. These are links. They're in your handouts. The handouts are here, and also they are all the way through and then listed again at the end. So this is a really interesting article. It's a few years old on if you want a grant, the first thing you should do is read somebody else's proposal. And I just recommend you read through it. But a core thing is gives you an idea of the competition on federal grants. So this is 2000 and early 2000s when this was written. 2001, they say that NSF received 49,000 proposals, which was up 53% from 2001. So this might be 2002. But it didn't have the budget that year. And so the success rates fell from 31% to 22%. Still, a 1 in 5 chance is not bad. Sometimes you're going to have a 1 in 100 chance. So one of the things you want to do in all of these types of grants is look at what they will tell you about how many they get and how many they fund. The other thing I have up on that screen is this. Back to my slides. I think this is, the second piece here is an article about a teacher who decided that his capstone assignments for masters weren't very good, and maybe he could up the interest from his master students by making them NSF proposals. It was interesting, and it talks about what the students learned, which I thought you might be interested in as well. So considering your reader. Now, your reader is going to be slightly different if you are, if you are going for a philanthropic grant. Now, who are the philanthropic people? They could, every state or country that you are in will have some wealthy people who are trying to get a particular kind of work done. So if you're in soil sciences, there will be philanthropists who are interested in revitalizing the soil where you are, or I think one of you is working with wildlife control. So whatever your topic area is, there may be pots of money, big organizations, or actually small, rich people who have a much smaller philanthropic, but around a particular topic area. So philanthropic grants have several similarities to the federal grants, but they're not as, what do I want to say? The federal grants are like trying to check into a mechanical kind of place. You have to really do it exactly right, and it goes out to lots of people, and 49,000 grants. You can just imagine there's a lot of program management there. Philanthropic grants are small, get smaller numbers, and so there's more likelihood that the person in charge of this grant can be reached to ask them questions, or that if they hold a meeting to tell you about their grant, you can go and you can make a small pitch about, I was thinking about doing this. Do you think that would fit? So they have a little bit more leeway. The important thing to remember is that their money has a reason for going out, and they will not fund anything that does not fill the gap they are trying to fund. And they also probably have some other considerations. So if you're a minority person, if you're a person representative of a minority population or a native population, and you're trying to fill a gap, you have two good things, if you see what I mean, because they are looking for people to fill the gaps, but they are also looking to be able to report to their boards of directors that they are funding a wide range of projects and people. So to the extent that you personally are in a smaller socioeconomic or ethnic or some other kind of group, that may be an advantage with a philanthropic grant. And in fact, it may be an advantage for an NSF grant as well. So once again, considering your reader, finding what you want to do, but pitching it to the organizations that have money that obviously are trying to get that are looking for what you're trying to do. Handouts are not available. I'll get them up when I come to a break. It's the slides, so you'll have them all. And thank you for that heads up. Who knows? All right, private funders. These could be wealthy people that you know. These could be friends of your family. These could be someone who graduated from your high school or an alum of your university. They are someone who has money, and the amount of money that they fund might be smaller, but it will come with a lot less requirement. So that's something I haven't talked about. If you get federal money, you have to write federal level reports. If you get philanthropic money, you have to write a moderate but still strenuous and rigorous report about all that went on. If you get money from a private funder, you might go out to coffee. But they have a niche. There's something they're interested in, and that something might be you. So not to say don't take seriously the possibility that within your network, probably less likely to be your close network, more likely to be a friend of a friend, statistically, or a friend of a friend of a friend who's heard about something interesting you're doing and comes forward to be able to give you the money you need to buy the equipment or some specific part. Private funders typically don't fund the whole project. They typically fund a portion of the project that they can feel good about. And what do they want to do? What are you trying to help them do? You're trying to help them feel good about the fact that they were generous and that their money went to something that made them feel good. Okay, and then finally, and because this is happening more and more today, we should talk about crowdfunding. Now, crowdfunding relies most of the time on a website. Maybe some of you have participated in crowdfunding. Maybe some of you have gotten those kinds of emails. So there's a website. You set up your situation. You email the people you know, and they give you small amounts of money towards something that they and you feel is interesting. It's gotten quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Very specific, and it's grown over the years to become a little bit more complicated. So with the other types of funding I just mentioned, you write a proposal, and then the proposal either gets funded or it doesn't. If it doesn't get funded, okay, that's the amount of time you put into it. If it does get funded, then you're going to also have to have time later when you're writing the reports or helping the funder feel like they got what they wanted. If it's crowdfunding you're talking about, it's much more time consuming. You have to set up a system, and the ones that get funded the best these days look like first level of funding, and you want it to be a small enough amount that you're going to get it pretty easily. Something that you can get from your family and friends and if your network out there. And then that becomes your level 1 funding. And then it goes, then you say, whoa, you send out an email that says, whoa, I got my level 1 funding. That means I can now go to my level 2. And then you get more and it's bigger, and you go to level 3 and it's more and you get bigger. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of emails. It's a lot of marketing. So there's this time differential with these that you have to consider. On the other hand, once it's done, what you need to, your reporting back amounts to getting the work done that you wanted to get done anyway. So that's good. And then you report back to the people who were at the different levels. And frequently these come with an early gift. So if I'm going to use an example here of a writer who just happened to send me an email about a project, a hardback edition. He's giving away the hardback edition when he finishes the book, but how exciting. It's just 2 days in and the Kickstarter is funded. So it's exciting. And then he's got stretch goals, etc. And the people who are putting in money may be putting in money for this kind of prize or this kind of prize, or they may put in this much money and they get more. So it's a robust world and it has some complications. But if what you are doing might appeal to a broader base population, an everyday population, and people could give you $25 towards it, and you would have a lot of people who might be interested in that, then you might consider this as well. So those are the types of funding. Now, I've alluded to some of the fact that each one of these types of funding has its own standards. But let me just talk about the fact that it's true of all of them. Things are due at certain times, and you have to get it done by that time. If you're writing a proposal, none will ever be accepted late. They don't care why. No, they have to be very clear, none accepted late. At the same time, if you're on the crowdfunding and you don't get your stuff done on time, you don't look very good. So it's the same thing. You have deadlines and you have to be someone who couldn't work to deadlines. There will be required formats, number of words, pictures, number of pages, etc. And you have to take those very seriously. You can't overdo. If you're someone who, like myself actually, who likes to be a bit robust in language, you're going to have to pare it down. You're going to have to know how to use Microsoft Word and count your words. And it's useful. Frequently, these are on a website and you're filling in boxes. So the website is counting your words. That's their way of making sure you're not overdoing it. So it's frequently useful to have two screens and have Microsoft Word up on one, so you can take out extra words. You can play with the word count and cut and paste back and forth. You also they frequently will suggest that you get them in early, and the reason for that is that there will be a lot of people bombarding these websites just at the time the deadline happens. It is absolutely frequent that people write right up until the last minute, and that you're getting a bit more nervous and you're putting things together, and oh, you forgot this piece and you have to go do it. And so it's complicated, and then you're at the end, and then websites can only take so many people hitting send at the same time. So you don't want to put yourself in a position where your work didn't get in because of a website problem. Tracy asks a really good question, which I'll come back to a little bit with NSF, but it is possible to be a grant reviewer on a lot of these places. So if you think that next year you want to apply for something this year, figure out if they will take volunteer reviewers, depending on who you're going for. And I have some more information, Tracy, for you towards the end. Frequently, the common standard is they will require of you letters of recommendation and your CV. That's something to do at the beginning, not the end, because at the end you are madly trying to get just the right words that say just the right thing for them to be impressed. And then all of a sudden you have to upload a document you're not sure of. So get those things done early. Now, those are their standards. You also should have your own standards. And those require some critical thinking on your part and a little bit of digging. So if for whatever kind of grant you're going for, see to what extent you can find examples from previous projects of things that have been funded by them. Federal and state funding, those documents are legally open public documents. The trouble is they're hard to find. But so look for examples first of the proposals that got funded. Another thing you can do is you can look for or find out who got funded, and then go to that person and say, I want to apply for this. Would you mind? Can I see? Can you take 15 minutes and tell me about the process? Can you tell me so once you get funded, frequently there are meetings of everybody who just got funded, that cohort of fundees. They frequently tell you in those meetings things that you didn't really realize were important until then. So talking to someone who's got the money last year can give you a heads up on some insider information about what they might really be looking for. These are not documents, you'll hear me say it a couple of times, these are not documents to get creative on. And so go through the guidelines with your biggest amount of critical analysis and highlight the words you want to use. So if they say they are looking for 3 words together, then you highlight that. And when you are writing, you use that phrase. Because you want to emulate them. You want to say to them quickly and easily as they read the document, I am what you are looking for. And I know that when I was early in my career, that has always not set well with me. I am always someone who tries to wordsmith everything to what I want it to say. And it is not as successful in grant writing as going with the just follow their rules and follow what their word and language is. Inquire about their processes. Know their guidelines. Don't assume their guidelines. And find out if their reviewers are reviewing to a rubric and find out if you can get your hands on that rubric. And I have one for NSF in the links that we'll show later. And as I said, talk to people who've gotten funded, talk to people who've reviewed for this particular grant. Now, so that's a process. That's a day's work. That's really trying to figure out where you think, and then review and reflect and write your own chart or standards, or have on hand their rubric. And then as you write, give that chart or standards or their rubric with your writing to someone else who will read it and chart against that rubric your work. And I have gone back to the screen. So another link that we have here that will be in the slides that will be up in your handouts. This may not be modern. It was unclear when it was put up, but this is the external peer review scoring rubric for NSF, format review criteria. And you can see that they're looking for intellectual merit. They're having the person score on a scale of 1 to 5, and then list strengths and weaknesses. And everyone who reads this has to fill that out. And then they can come back together in committees. They can look at all the number ones, and they can see to what extent several people saw the same strengths and weaknesses in these documents. Notice that they have additional review criteria, whether or not, and these are interesting. If you find the rubric, look at the kind of subtext, which is the additional review criteria. In this case, did you have a data management plan? Did you have a mentoring plan? Etc. How budget, very important. They don't want to give money to people who haven't managed one of these budgets before. How are you going to show them that you can do that? And then comments that'll go back to the applicant, things that you might consider later. It looks like this is set up for something that if you were their applicant, you would get it back. Very helpful. If you don't get the first one, you'll learn and have a better chance for others. Okay. All right, so you've chosen what level you're going to go for. You've found out about them. You have a better understanding of who they are. Now you're down to your writing, and that has to do with the language you are going to use. So every one of our programs, every type of academic work that we're involved in has our own jargon that goes with it. Don't use it. Do not get any jargon if you can. You want this to be written in a way that people completely out of your field would feel completely also equally comfortable to read it. And you want to be speaking the language that was given in the review. I've said before, and I'll say it again, if they use a certain phrase, you use that phrase. You address their phraseology in your words. So you're mirroring and using their words in their proposal. And then if you have an example of other people who have been funded, write your rough draft following along and mirroring how they did theirs. Then go back and give it the spice that is particularly yours. But frequently I see people writing the spicy part out of our own heads first. And then it becomes more difficult to push the work back into the framework that makes it easier for them to grade. And so just let me say, this is not this is not an exercise in creativity. This is an exercise in doing what is asked for in a particularly rigorous way. Think again that your reader is tired. They just have these papers. It's the end of their day. oh, they forgot about these, that it was due tomorrow. They are staying up all night grading and writing up these reports. Make it easy for them to skim your work and see evidence that they can give you a good score. So this gets down to getting it done on time. And in fairness, for all the grants I've ever written, I don't think I've ever gotten them done. I backwards map, and if you don't know what that means, you can go to the pd.education and you can type in the words backward, and you'll have resources come up that will tell you how to do it. But I would backwards map that I wanted it here. It had to be done here. So I was going to get it done a week early. And that meant it needed to be reviewed here. And that meant it needed to be written here. And that meant that it needed to have I needed to do my prep work here, etc. I can have the best backwards map complete with deadlines. And I'm very good at following those. And still things come up. The reviewer didn't get it back to me. The revision took longer than I thought. All those things go on. So plan in time for reflection and revision. Backwards map, add a few weeks, and then do the best you can. But absolutely have others see your work, because they will always see things you will not. And if you've done good prep work and you've shared it with your editors, they know what you're looking for, what the reviewers are looking for, they will be better editors for you. And then, this is really important, you just let it go. Once you press that send button, it's gone. It's out of your hands. You have to have a, if it's meant to be, it'll be kind of attitude. And then you go on. But there are a lot of really good things to take from this. I recommend writing grants because they are a different kind of intellectual exercise, and they are stressful, but they do take your work further. They make you consider your work up against some kind of grid or matrix that is not yours, and that will force you to be more rigorous. It will allow you to have creative thoughts you wouldn't have had otherwise. It's a great exercise. So look at it like that. Like, okay, I get it. If I get it, great. If I don't get it, it's a great exercise. What did I learn from it? Be proud of the fact that you are one of the people who is willing to go that extra bit and take this kind of thing on. Be proud of that. That makes you one of the top 10% of the people in your cohorts around. So go into it with that kind of an attitude, and it will be a positive process for you. I see lots of questions coming up, and I'll take them when I'm finished in just a few minutes. I just want to go through a few more extra resources for you. The slides, which I will take a moment to try to put up again, are here, and I'll show you some of the things from them. But your biggest resource is going to be other people. And so search out on your campus people who've obtained the grant you want to write for, or who have reviewed the grant or been trained to review the grant you're applying for, or someone who's received grants, who writes grants, who's comfortable with this process, and whether or not they've written the specific one you have. If your chair or people on your committee have been funded by grants, ask them if they would give you a half an hour to talk through your idea with this grant that you have in mind. Use their expertise for something outside of your research, but I think they'll be happy to do it, because within our academic world, those of us who are grant funded are our own special thing. And if you are working in a center on a university campus, then you know that the head of the center has been probably your rainmaker or the person who's brought in the most funding. So that is a very useful person to have in your network, and see if they'll give you a 10-minute cup of coffee just to talk about things they've learned about grants. And there will be slides available afterwards. I'll absolutely, and I have to get them up. I had tried to put them up and they just didn't take. So I'll do that right away. Okay, so if your grant hosts meetings for applicants, go. Now, I haven't always found them to be terribly interesting, but if you go looking for the subtext, go to see if your idea seems to fit. Go to see if you can ask them privately, does this fit from their point of view? See what they stress in the meeting as being important, and absolutely make sure you can deliver that. And they're useful. And then, let me just say here, I'll come back to that link. Just have a few more minutes. So I have listed some things that are websites, but start with your university website. Start with your program. Start with talking to your committee chairs. I'm looking for funding. What parts of this idea that I have might be fundable? If so, who would it be? Now, for those of you in Ireland, it seems like the SUSI funding is going to be the most available. And I've given you the link. And then when we look at NSF, there are lots of links. And let me just show you over here a few of them. This is all in these, you can just click through and find the ones that I'm dealing with. But there is this, which I thought was very good, where you can talk about what the level of that you are, the division you want to write for, and your education level. And then you can look for award type. You might be looking for a fellowship or a standard grant. So you can hone in on all the kinds of funding they have very easily. I thought that was excellent. NSF has a twofold process. One is a merit review. One is an informational review. And this is a document that overviews the merit review. They also, the one good thing about federal funding is that they have spent a lot of money helping people get this. They don't want to turn proposals over to their readers that aren't up to worth reading. And so they will try to help you get your proposal to the highest standards. And I've given you the link that leads you to all of the opportunities for funding and what a merit review is and all of that. You might be eligible for a fellowship. And I didn't mention fellowships in private and philanthropic funding, but they all have them. And a fellowship is a commitment to be part of a group that they have brought together with a similar idea or focus. It's a bit like being in the in crowd, being accepted to be in the in crowd and having lots of help to stay there and to get advances. It requires some more time of you, but they can be quite interesting in terms of the cohorts, and they can help make a network that will advance your career for a long time to come. This was an excellent site on Psychological Science, Association for Psychological Science. And I've also given you the grants for if you're in justice, if you're in education sciences, if you're leveraging psychological science for public health. There are specific grant opportunities there that this page lists. And I've mentioned that it's necessary, or you should, in my opinion, look for people in your university that have received these grants in the past. And they do have a page where you can research. Somebody can say, oh, I think he got one. Well, you can go look up here whether or not he got one. And if so, what the field of study was, etc. Okay, so that takes us through a short vision here. And before I go to, one more thing. Within the PD.education resources, you all should have gotten an email over the last 2 months that have a lot of PDFs, that have a lot of video resources that you can cruise through and choose which ones suit you. This topic area is under getting published. It's the processes and the considerations that you need as the author of a grant are pretty much exactly equal to when you're going to take your work to get published. So there's a little bit of trade-off, but understanding your reader, critically analyzing what's gone before you, all of that is very much the same steps. So you might want to look at the resources on the Getting Published PDF if you're looking for more things. I will take your questions in just a minute, but let me just zip through. It looks like it's here. Download. Maybe it just didn't download. It looks like when I go into handouts, on my end, I see it, Grantwriting and Fundraising PDF, share. Maybe I hit share. That's it. I needed to share it. See if you can see it now, and let me know in the chat if it's still not there. All right, let me go back up. I think we're starting at the question of, is it possible to volunteer to be an NSF grant reviewer? And if so, what are the qualifications? So that should have been covered. Let me show you on this. When you open it up, the in the handouts, when you follow the link, this is science.org, and it's an article on reviewing for them. It's old, so it might not be current, but I was looking to answer that specific question, so hopefully that takes you forward. Are some of these review processes computerized due to the high number of submissions? They all are computerized to some extent. I don't think any of them anymore are going to be send an email and attach your proposal, which is what they would have been 15 years ago or something. Many of them will be computerized to the extent that they have several pages, and you go through those pages and you fill in their blanks, and hopefully their websites are strong enough that it's saving as you go along. They will have options for you to make a PDF as you go, that kind of thing. Most of them have that. They also, most of them immediately send you an email saying that they've got it. And that email tells you what to expect in terms of the review process. Depending again on if it's a federal, state, philanthropic, etc. kind of grant, a philanthropic grant will more likely be reviewed quicker. And once again, they have the advantage of you, when you're writing it, maybe being able to call in and ask a question, or maybe they have a chat bot that will get you to where you can ask a question, or maybe they have FAQs online. All of those kinds of things you can probably expect. Should we focus on keywords to get beyond the bot that may filter submissions? So bots probably don't filter submissions. In fact, I feel pretty comfortable in that because these are taxpayers' dollars, and or there's something in the grant writing process, in the reason people put out grants, that having a bot do the first read wouldn't be acceptable. Fingers crossed we haven't evolved ? To that. But once again, you're using the words they're using. You're repeating back to them that you are worthy of their money because you understand their goals. And that's similar to focusing on the keywords, whether or not we're worried about bots. Next question, are there any online communities where people of the same interest for grant writing can connect and maybe collaborate? Yeah, I'm sure there are. And I would imagine, well, let me just do a quick communities online to support grant writing. I got things like public service announcements, YouTube links. There's services. And then we got into community recognition funds, beginners guides to applying for grants. Your university also might have a writing group for grant writers, especially when it's NSF time, etc. Okay, so thank you for telling me that you got the handouts. And has this been helpful? Do you have questions that you want me to answer in the next 15 minutes? Did you have an idea about a particular thing you wanted to get funded? I can do some quick searches on some atypical funding opportunities so that you can see what that looks like. Good. I'm glad it was helpful for some. I meant it to be, here's a to-do list. Here's things. If you sit down and you think, okay, I have to backwards map, each one of those sections is the sections to backwards map a time for, when the grant is due, you've got to do all those things. You figure out how much the time is going to be. And then you let it go. You do the very best you can. You learn, because every single time you do one of these, it'll get better. For private grants, are there differences between the proposal cover letters and other things? Yes. It depends upon letters of introduction. It depends upon how big this organization is. So one of the first things I learned, that's a really good question. One of the first things I learned is that people give money to people. Even though this process is mechanized, even though 29,000 people, to the extent you can find out who got that grant before, and that person can write your letter of recommendation better than just the person who knows you better writing it. If you can be handed off by somebody they know, if you can meet them and make enough of an impact on them that when they see your stuff in writing, something clicks for them. If you can go to their meetings, whatever it takes to be a person in this realm, then that's good. So to this extent, in a difference between a proposal cover letter for a big organization and a little organization is that personal touch. At what point is it appropriate for you to put your picture on your cover letter? You're a person then. So these are things to mull over as you're working towards the specific, showing up to them as being the person that they can partner with to get their work done. That's who you are. You're a cog in their wheel if they give you money. Okay, so that's the important piece. Interested in funding for a virtual reality medical simulation that has embedded AI for case-based learning. Any tips would be helpful. Okay, so let's just take a walk around on the screen and say, who funds scientific VR? What's the word you use? Simulations. Okay, so here you have some companies who've gotten money. Virtual reality for scientists. So you've got the organizations. I see that some of these, also the governmental organizations that are using VR. So who would you be selling it to at the end of the day? And are they somebody? Would there be money from the European Commission, for instance? Would there be money from CDC if it's a medical kind of situation? So that's a place to start. That leads me to, that was a very good question. It leads me to the fact that if your work is going to impinge on the business world, then you have ideas. Are you going to be an entrepreneur with this? And if so, is this research actually the startup for your company? And if it is, then is there startup money that can help with this process? In Ireland, universities partner with Enterprise Ireland, which funds companies. There might be some handshake there that you can look into. So search your keywords, search VR, take the pieces apart and ask the question, who funds this? What kind of grants fund this? Are there grants for? Is another question that you might want to throw into Google. One area my nonprofit struggles with. I did not get specifically into nonprofit fundraising, so I'll take a minute for that. Your questions are excellent. If you could pick 2 or 3 methods of quick crisis fundraising, what would you say those methods are? Okay, quick crisis fundraising. So I'm just going to say, if you are fundraising for a nonprofit, you need to have a, let me call it a tree. So your mission is the top of the tree, and every bit of fundraising you go for has to be really clear how it serves them, but also how it serves your mission, because they don't fund nonprofit missions unless they are clear how these things go together. So you're funding your tree. Now, as you're funding your tree, you're making relationship, and it's the relationships that get to your quick crisis fundraising. So quick crisis fundraising can be state level, depends on your mission, can be state level. You're doing something that advances the medical arena, advances the kinds of personal public challenges, and you run out of cash to do things, then there might be state funding that will come into play to keep you afloat between one thing and another. Bridge funding, they might call it. But as likely, if you've been doing this enough to be really effective fundraising, then you have made a relationship with everybody who's ever given you money. You have sent back to them in their reports pictures of how their money got used. You have sent them thank you gifts that you have had if you're working with kids, you've had the kids come in and you've invited the funder to your events. You've done things to build a personal relationship. And then you can literally call them on the phone and say, Roxanne, we're in a tough space. Any chance? And if Roxanne doesn't have the money, she knows people in her field that do. So just to say, if you're talking nonprofit fundraising, you're in an area and your philanthropic network, those people all know each other. Those people all go to meetings with each other. They have collaborative ideas about things that need to get done. What you need to do is build the personal relationships with the people who sit at that table. So if they can't help you out in a crisis, they may know somebody else they can call to say, I've got this grantee. They are fabulous. I love their work and they need help any chance. And how do I access grant proposals that were funded? Well, sometimes if it's public money, you can ask them. You can look on the web. You can say, I'm looking for the grants that got funded before. And you may get them. You'll at least get synopsis of who was funded. At the very least, they will say, these are the people who funded and this is what they're funded for. And they will have taken paragraphs out of those grant proposals to talk about the people who were funded in the last cohort. So that'll give you a leg up. And then when you find those people, you can go call them and say, I'm trying to get this grant proposal. Any chance you'd be willing to send me your proposal because I'm whatever. Or any chance you can give me 10 minutes, cup of coffee, tell me what it was like, or something like that. I'd go maybe if they give you 10 minutes and a cup of coffee, if they're in your area, then once you meet them and you're a nice person, you can say, any chance I can see your proposal just to see how it was done? Not that my work is really different, but this process seems opaque to me. I'd love to have a model I could work with. What are the best places to go for? The worst they can do is say no. You don't know them anyway. What are the best places to go for seed grants under 1,000 for paying participants? Well, you know what? I might go the personal route there. 1,000 would be 10 people who are willing to give you 100, or 20 people who are willing to give you 50. Family and friends can be tagged for things like that. And then you don't have to write it, and you don't have to record it, and you can, that kind of stuff. Worst they can do is say no. You just have to get to a point where you so believe that what you do is important that the worst they can do is say no. Good ideas never get a lot of yeses. Good ideas always start out with a lot of no's. How different are these type of grants to small grants within the university that give less than $5,000? All grants follow the basic outline that I have given you. All grants are similar, much more similar than different. That will be true. University grants are more like the philanthropic level, in that they run a little bit more on personal. You should take the time to work your network, to be a person they know, to be somebody they feel follows through on what they say. You don't know when you're just a student in a classroom whether or not the professor is someone who sits on a committee who takes care of those grants. So you your moral code is always impeccable. You say and do what you say you're going to do, and you follow through on your ideas. Or if you can't, you tell people why before you let them down. You work in groups. If you're in a class and you've got a group, you are the one who works the group. You're not the one who slops off. You don't know what people say in coffee clutches on round tables about other people. So you are the crisp, clear person. They will say, oh yeah, she always does what she says. That's what counts for these small grants, is that they know if they give you the money, you're going to do the right thing with it, and they're going to look good. You don't want to be the one at the end of the day that's disappointed, somebody who's given you money. I got to thank you. I'm very happy to answer your questions. We have run right up to the time we're over. I hope that this was really useful. And for everybody watching by recording, that I'm sure the questions people asked should help you as well. And may you all be successful. But if you are not successful, remember, this is good for you. You will learn from this experience. So go do it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Go do it, and it'll be good. All right. Thank you very much. And I'm stopping the recording. I will see you all again, if not live, in recording on pd.education.